This year, I have had two opportunities to travel with West Valley Presbyterian Church down to Rancho Santa Marta. I went in the fall. In November, we just went as a teaching team, worked with the house parents and the teachers for a short period of time. And then in the week between the two long weekends, we went down and stayed. There were 23 of us that went, which was about half the number of last year. So I'm kind of combining our Minute for Mission with this sermon, so you'll kind of get a storyline at the beginning, and then we'll move more into the passage. The advantages of a smaller team this year were we had less injuries. We had a much faster trip, and there were much more focus on the work. Last year, it was like this huge party going on all the time, and there were constant injuries. So it was kind of like not quite as much fun, a lot more intimacy. It was really good to get to know people. So I flew down with what was intended to be the advance team. The theory was that we fly down to San Diego, we get a vehicle, we get to the ranch first, we fix dinner, we're ready to welcome in the people who've been driving. However, when we got to San Diego, the van that was intended wasn't ready. We had to wait and wait, and we spent a really long time standing in a really smelly parking lot, waiting. Meanwhile, the West Valley crowd had left at about 3:30 in the morning. They didn't have as many people with them. They didn't have to make as many bathroom stops. The bathroom stops were a lot faster, and we landed at the border at exactly the same time, and the race was on. And I will only ride with certain drivers, I can tell you that. When I say the race was on, that was real. So I left. I don't have pictures yet, but I just realized I left the thing in the back. So we get to right before the border, we stopped. I went into Walmart, raided Walmart, so I took like every coloring book they had, all of their colored pencils, you know, going out with bags and bags of stuff for the ranch, for the things that they had requested. Sorry, this is not.
It's on.
It's on, thank you. Okay, so once you cross the border, an advantage that we had on this trip going down was that everything was open, and all you have to do as you're going through Tijuana is just kind of keep bearing right, and you're going to go down the coast, and it's going to be lovely. I need to tell you, though, that in the fall, when we went down and it was dark, the Federales had closed off that road off to the right, and in the fall, we found ourselves lost in Tijuana with no phone service, no maps, and for a while until we prayed, and miraculously, one of the person's phones decided to work, and we were able to find our way out of Tijuana in the dark. That was in November. But this time, everything was great. It was daylight, and as you drive down the coast, it is fabulous. The views of the ocean, we could see all the construction projects that were finished. If you've never been down there, there's this giant Jesus statue, and that's always a big landmark. Are we going to make it to see Jesus? And we did. We saw Jesus, and it was great. And you keep going, and there are fish farms, and it's a fabulous drive. And we stopped in at Starbucks in Ensenada. I mean, how much nicer can it get, right? Except for the fact that the van that we got in that smelly parking lot had absolutely no suspension, none. I promise you there was not any. And the air conditioning didn't work. So I was on the fourth row, the very back, feeling every bump. So we get our teas and our coffees at Starbucks, everybody's well refreshed, and I was the first person back to the van, moved myself up just one row because I wanted to be humble, but I was not sitting on the back row again. This began the shuffle of equitable suffering. And everything was great until I told you the race was on. There are a few potholes between Ensenada and the ranch. There was one that we hit at full blast, and all of a sudden the air conditioning worked, so life was looking up. Going out of Ensenada, you go into some fabulous mountains and then into this new wine country. And it's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful drive that I was too busy holding on. I didn't take any pictures. I promise you it's beautiful. Just look at pictures of wine country, and that's where we were. And we got to the Federale stop where you're out in the mountains and there's absolutely nowhere you could go. It's a cliff down this way and it's a mountain going that way. You've got no choice but to stop for the Federales. This time, they pretty much just waved us through. In the fall, we told them where we were going, which is a little place called San Vicente. And they looked at us and said, "Why?" San Vicente has one stoplight, an ongoing flea market, and gigantic mud holes. That's it. But it also has the ranch. And so I don't know whether they're starting to get used to seeing the caravans come through or whatever, but this time they just waved us on, and it was really nice. It was a good drive. We get there, and it was the most amazing bucket brigade of unloading the vans and everything, and everybody worked together as a team. So I have to say that was one of the best things about going with this group. It was incredible teamwork. 23 people working as one, just flowing and smoothly, nobody getting in arguments, no power struggles. It was a really fabulous trip in that way. Sunday morning dawned clear and cold. We were able to get out, have a lovely walk up into the hills. I've never heard so many birds singing. It was wonderful. We went to church, sang for 45 minutes. The kids stood up and shared praises and prayer requests, and it was just really good for our hearts. Bill and Kay, the founders of the ranch, were there. It was really a wonderful time. Then we went, everybody said, let's go to the beach. We've never been to the beach. We're close to the beach. Doesn't everybody go to the beach when they go to Mexico? Sounds like a plan. Right. The road was what I grew up calling a washboard road. It just went like this. We split up in more cars, and not everybody went, so nobody got the fourth row, but it was fabulous. But you're going through absolute wilderness for about an hour, like this. And there were some of the skinniest cows I've ever seen. So this is a view of the ranch from an aerial view. The chapel where we worshiped. And there's the beach. It was absolutely fabulous. We got to see a whale spouting. We didn't see his body, but we could tell he was going by. And we had a really nice time there. There's everybody watching for the whale, just barely getting in the water, which was freezing. This is kind of the countryside we went through, some of the skinniest cows I've ever seen in my whole life. It was very, very sad. Having to be careful how I change pages because I have a ladybug up here keeping company. Most of the time, the West Valley people were focused on construction, and I don't have tons of pictures, although they did, of their construction, but they hauled rocks and concrete, and this is a little bit of the report of what the West Valley team did. I was on the teaching team. We put in 364 person hours of teaching, obviously counting everybody in every hour. They pulled 1,000 feet of conduit through metal studs in the gym, painted 640 square feet of walls in the gym, plus the railing, the front entrance, the front gate, and a dining room table. They re-roofed the pig pen, and for those of you that aren't familiar with the ranch, it started out as a pig farm. So they keep pigs. We collect everything that's not eaten and slop the pigs. They fixed 4 toilets and a shower, demolished one old structure, excuse me, hauled away all of that stuff. Anyway, they hauled away about 10 tons of cement and then put in 53.4 tons in one place. I won't add all of it up, but they put in about 88 tons of cement into different parts. So I think progress was made tearing down the old, putting in the new. Excuse me. This gives you a sense of the buildings that are being built. They're really well constructed. This is the courtyard of the new junior high that was built last year. And that's the outside of the building. The big dog is the welcoming committee. This young man is from the Korean church that has now joined with West Valley Presbyterian Church. We did a lot of work with the kids and had fun with them. Had a barbecue with them one night. One night they hosted us at their houses, but I can't put up pictures of the kids, even though that would be very enticing for you to see lots of smiling children. They asked us not to take pictures of the kids because people have done that. They've come down, taken pictures of the kids, posted them on Facebook, and then the parents that they were taken from, who were not nice people, found them, and then the ranch had to deal with these unpleasant encounters and trying to defend the kids. So they will have some very safe pictures up on their website, and I encourage you to go to their website, let them tell you the stories in the ways that they can in order to protect the anonymity of the children, keep their confidences. But we put on a big hamburgers, hot dogs, Chinese chicken salad. That's our team serving the meal. Played a lot of games with the kids. This is a couple that volunteers a lot of their time and stays down there working. We had a piñata full of nuts and small toys. The dinner was hamburgers, hot dogs, Chinese chicken salad, and fruit. What's missing? Sugar. No sugar at all, anywhere. It was great. So we had a good week of work. We had campfires every night where we had devotions and sang songs, and that was really great. And now we're back to the meal, serving the kids. This is the inside of the chapel, rearranged for showing for when we were teaching. Really nice facility, well built, all by volunteers from the U.S., mostly California churches. The last night we went out to visit the mission that was originally there in San Vicente. This is the way the ruins have been preserved. So that's the kind of overview of the mission trip. I want to bring your attention to the last verse in the scripture that was read. It said, "Those who walk at night stumble because the light is not in them." And somehow, many of us in the United States have lost the light that was in us, or we're not sharing the light because more and more people in the United States, where we're wealthy and we have good health care and a lot of things are available to us, keep asking the question, how can there be a good God, or even a God at all, if there is evil or sickness or suffering? And that's just not a question that they ask in San Vicente. They recognize that the evil is being perpetrated by other people who are making poor choices. And when they say, "Where is God?" in San Vicente, it's very clear. There's this clean, well-kept, well-run school that's not perfect, but the people are dedicated, they're people of integrity, they're people of prayer, but also people who get in there and apply it, and they give that credit to God. So it's very clear. Where is God? God's up there on that hill. Not that those people are God, but that God is there working through the people who have given their lives. And it started with Bill and Kay. In the heart of the Baja Peninsula, just like in the United States, there are children who are suffering fates worse than death. It was sad in our scripture story that we hear of the death of Lazarus. But the things that those children are put through, in many cases, they would have been better off if they had died, except that by surviving, they go on to get to live at the ranch. And I'm not being naive or simplistic. I was the one in there working with the house parents on all their struggles and how they're up all night and the problems that they're dealing with in the middle of the night and all that kind of stuff. So it's not that it's a pie in the sky kind of beauty, but I really don't think I've ever seen a mission that was so well done. From the physical facilities to the hard work and the commitment to integrity and quality. It's a really good mission. The verse that kept coming to me the whole week I was there was, "To whom much is given, much is required." To whom much is given, much is required. And we need to realize that to us, much has been given, and therefore of us, much is required. Now, how we give it, where we give it, what we do with it, I can't say. For each person and each church, we need to listen to God's guidance and leading and do what is right as we understand that God's leading. But it just kept coming to me over and over. To whom much is given, much is required. When I went through school, I'm very grateful not to have huge debts, because I got scholarships and I got grants, and there are sometimes jobs that came along at just the right moment in time to help pay for things. So I'm very grateful, and I know that much was given to me. The agency where I worked in Southern California provided amazing continuing education. So to me, God's answer, God's word is, you were given a lot. Now, here's the place and the time for you to share it. So I think a lot of times on the trip, I was kind of the odd one out. There were 23 people that went. 22 of them functioned really as a team. And I sort of felt like an invisible person most of the time because I wasn't in there with them. I spent most of my time with the house parents, with the administrative staff, with the bus drivers, with and most of it with the other therapists that were there, rather than with the team from West Valley. They did absolutely fabulous work, and they were a great group. I want to give them a lot of credit. Bill and Kay had this amazing vision. What they saw was a pig farm in the middle of the Baja Peninsula. But what it became, and the vision that God gave them, is this beautiful, beautiful retreat-like setting that has now become a really well-respected school that's primarily for special education and also has 5 houses for kids who have special needs and or came from abusive backgrounds. Not only are they orphans, in a sense, but often they were kids who other orphanages kicked out, and they said, these kids are too tough to work with. Here, you take them, see what you can do with them. Bill and Kay had a daughter named Tina, and Rod came down on a mission trip, and he was absolutely enthralled by the mission, the location, and mostly by Tina. And they've gotten married, they've raised their kids there on the ranch. Their kids have now gone off and are up in San Diego going to school, but they're all committed to ministry, and they've grown up with that. Our theme verse for Lent is to run in such a way as to get the prize. And what I've seen of the work of the people there at the ranch is that they're not only there doing their job day after day, but they are really committed to continuing education. So the staff are taking classes online, and so they work all day and then they go take their online classes at night. And so we were told as part of our team that we couldn't go online until after 9 o'clock at night, because they needed the Wi-Fi access to be able to take their classes. So they're really committed to excellence in the education that they're providing. The person I spent the most time with was Denise. She's an occupational therapist from Oregon. And she came down on one of the mission trips and just said, I think if there's anything I can do, I'd be glad to stay. And I forget how long she's been there, but it's been a really long time. She just stayed. She's now so fluently bilingual that she forgets which language she's speaking. And so sometimes as we were working together, she'd be looking at the Spanish people and speaking English, and we learned to just kind of do this, and she would switch languages, which is an amazing ability. So then she's also working on a master's in psychology. She commutes up to San Diego once a week. And she lives in, this is a picture of the dorms where the church workers can stay, and the little white car, Denise gets in and she drives up to San Diego every week. She's a braver person than I am. I mean, I was terrified driving in a caravan with a whole lot of other people. And she just drives back and forth by herself every week, because she's so committed that, it's not enough that she's there doing occupational therapy, but she wants to get the master's in psychology so that she can oversee what they call psychologists, which are young women who have a bachelor's in psychology. In the U.S., we're required to do 3,000 hours of experience and pass extensive exams at the beginning and the end of our experience. And there, with a bachelor's in psychology, they're said, go, do good work. Remember to get some continuing ed. And so Denise wants to be in the position of being able to mentor these young girls, one of whom grew up on the ranch. And so she understands thoroughly what the kids are going through. And the other one is the daughter of house parents there on the ranch. So there's this complete commitment to quality of education, doing good work. And as I kind of thought through, how does all this work? They seem to have a goal. They have a direction. They really stay focused but they also know how to flex when it's really necessary. All of these people could have made a lot of money following a different career, and they've all given up their lives, just as it said to in our scripture, in order to take care of these children and to provide them with a quality of life. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verse 24 says, "Do you not know that in a race all the runners run, but only one gets the prize? Run in such a way as to get the prize." Now the good news is that by grace through faith in Jesus Christ, all of us who want to be saved will spend eternity with God. But we are called to something beyond than simple salvation. We're called to a life of discipleship. We're called to a life of integrity and quality and excellence, giving our whole lives, everything. Now, it doesn't matter what line of work we are in. We could be in any line of work. It could be any type of volunteer work. But we are called to run in such a way as to get a prize. So just like Denise is not only working all day, when she's not seeing clients, she's riding the school bus with them to help them on their way home or serving in the lunch line, and then driving up to San Diego to get her education. I mean, that kind of devotion is absolutely amazing. That's the kind of devotion that got the University of Virginia into first place in the basketball tournaments. They are disciplined, they're committed, they are hardworking, and they lost. What was the difference? How come Virginia lost in the game that was going to take them to the top, that everybody believed they were going to win? They didn't look out for the unexpected. They weren't able to flex. They underestimated the power of the University of Maryland, Baltimore. I mean, what good is going to come out of Baltimore? Have you ever seen The Wire? Come on, people. Baltimore County? And that's what tripped them up. They were disciplined, they were focused, they had a goal, they had a direction, they were going, they were at the top. And that's how we've got to be. Except that, we also need to be able to flex. We need to be able to handle situations that get thrown at us that are like, oh my word, where did that come from? And in the middle of when that gets thrown at us, not to say, okay, there is no such thing as God, but to be able to say, God will carry me through this. God is present here. Jesus may tarry for a couple of days, but he's going to show up, and he still loves me. And what feels like the absence of God isn't necessarily the absence of God. It just means we need to be brave and to hold on and to keep giving our lives and keep believing, because Jesus is coming. Jesus actually still loves us, even in what feels like an absence. Now, we don't need to pick up and all move to Mexico. That's really not necessary. However, I would encourage you to support that mission, because I think it's a really good one. And I've heard all their problems, and they're handling them with a lot of flexibility. But it's important for us to have a goal of being more like Christ, to keep moving in that direction. And how you do it will be unique to you and between you and Jesus. To stay focused on your daily tasks and be ready to flex, because I can promise you there will be times when it feels like Jesus isn't there, but he still loves us. We just need to keep going during that gap. Let's pray. Gracious, holy, and loving God, we thank you that you are here with us at all times. We thank you for the quality of work that was done there in Mexico. And we thank you that you will give us the courage, the strength to do whatever it is that you've called us to do wherever we are this week. Help us to stay focused on you, to become more like you, and to be able to keep believing and to flex when life throws us a curve. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Thank you for that testimony and message. I want to add that Rancho Santa Marta has been one of our missions for at least, 20 years or something here in this church, Dave Wegener was telling me that he had made 4 trips with this church down there, and their first times were staying in the pig pens. That's where the visitors came and stayed. Some of the others have been a part of that. This is a faith promise-giving church. We believe in missions. We believe that God raises money to spread the gospel around the world, and by doing this, we're able to spread the gospel on all continents, and it's exciting to be a part of that. So now we're going to take up the offering, and if you were moved to give to missions, you just mark that on your envelope, and it will go into a separate account for that, and it supports Rancho Santa Marta amongst all our other missions, and each month we feature a different mission. I also want to add that Pastor Martha kept saying West Valley, and I just want to add that that's in Cupertino, and we made many trips when we were Southern California pastors to Mexico, and it was a 2.5-hour trip. These folks were on a van for a long time, and then it's a long time once they get across. And when I would listen to Pastor Martha tell me the story about going to Mexico, I'd say, I am glad it's you and not me. Why do you go? Nobody's making you go. She's going because God has called her to go, and she really wants to be a part of that. And that's really exciting and if you can't go, you know what to do. Pull out that wallet, and let's make sure that those who go those who are there are well supported. Let us worship God now.